Today I'm going to teach you how to safely put out a fire and escape from a fire. Do you know what to do if you're on fire, if a house is on fire, or if there's a grease fire? Today I'm going to teach you how to do each of those things. These are methods you can use in almost any country that you live in. What do you do if you are on fire? Our gut reaction is to run to the closest water, just to run and scream because we're so panicked. Unfortunately, running makes the fire increase. So even though water may be 30 feet away, while you're running to that water, your body will be burning. So I'm going to talk about a better way to put out that fire. The first thing you want to do when you're on fire is to stop. Then you want to drop. After that, you want to cover your face and roll. Now you may say, why do you cover your face? Because your face is beautiful, and so you want to protect it. In terms of rolling, when you're doing that, you're smothering out the fire. Say the fire is on this portion of your arm, so what you're going to want to do is roll on the ground on that part of your arm. If the fire is engulfing all of you, go ahead and roll 360 degrees over and over again until that fire is out. Now, while you're doing that, people who are watching and want to help can go run and get some water and dump it on you. If somebody has a heavy blanket or a carpet, they can put that around you. Sometimes people don't have anything else, but they want to help. So if you're one of those people, if you have clothing that's a natural product, say cotton or denim, you can use that to help smother out the fire. Now, do not use your hands, although you can, and that will put out the fire. You will burn your hands, and that can potentially cause problems for your own hands. Things like contractures that could cause your hands not to open later on. So try to do the other things that we talked about. So what do you do if you're on fire? You stop, drop, cover your face, and roll. What do you do if you were cooking something and the pot that you were using suddenly catches on fire? Our gut reaction is to pour water into a fire, but that is something you should never do in the case of a grease fire. I'm gonna teach you the safe things you can do using the things that most of us have in our kitchen. The first thing you wanna do is turn off the stove. Most of us have towels in our kitchen, so if you have a towel, you can just grab it, put it in water, squeeze it out, and then go ahead and safely put it over the fire. And that should quench it in most cases. Another thing that you can do is use a lid. You want to use a lid that is bigger than or equal to the size of the pot that has the fire in it. Try not to hold the lid from the handle. If you do that, as you're putting it over the pot, you might burn yourself. So you want to hold the lid furthest away from the fire and then just put it over the fire. You can also use salt and baking soda. Many times people ask, can I substitute something? If I don't have salt, can I put in sugar? If I don't have baking soda, can I put in baking powder? Isn't it all the same? No, it is not. You can't substitute the things that I just said because sugar actually makes the fire grow, as does baking powder. So what are the things that you cannot put into a fire? Never put in water, sugar, baking powder, or flour. What do you do if you were reading or watching TV in a room and suddenly you notice that there's smoke all around and you're like, what's going on? Oh, it's a fire. What is the first thing you should do? You should drop to the ground. Did you know that in many fires, people don't die of being burned to death, but because of smoke inhalation? So you do not want that smoke going into your lungs. So that is why you drop to the ground and you should crawl on your arms to the nearest door. When you get to that door, do not open it and run out without checking to see if it's safe to do so. Sometimes the only thing that's preventing that fire from entering the room that you are in and killing you is that door. So do not open it without knowing if it's safe to do so. Well, how do you know if there's a fire right outside the door? You can't see it unless you have a glass door. Here's something that everyone can do to check. Go ahead and use the back of your hand to tap on that doorknob. Most doorknobs are metal, so they'll get hot if there's a fire on the other side of that door. So when you tap your hand on it, if it's hot, do not open that door. Now, why did I say to use the back side of your hand? Because if you use the front, the tendency is to just grab it, and if it's hot, you will get burned. If you use the back side of your hand, you're less likely to get burned in checking. If that doorknob is cold, go ahead and open that door and run out of the house yelling fire so that other people can escape as well. If, however, the doorknob is hot, please go back on the ground and crawl over to the nearest window and open that window. If you can safely escape through that window, escape through the window, and if you cannot, go ahead and yell and scream. There are countries where there are metal bars on the windows and it's impossible to escape through them. So please, scream, yell, try to get somebody to come and help you. In the meantime, go ahead and drop to the ground and cover your nose and your mouth to try to prevent that smoke from getting into your lungs while you're waiting. Also, if you have a telephone, please call someone for help. Now let's talk about what happens if you do manage to escape from the house. Where do you go? This is where a fire safety plan comes in handy. Did you know that in fires, people sometimes die trying to save someone that was already safe? So what happens is people run out, they can't find their loved ones, and so they run back into the building. Unknown to them, that loved one was already safe outside, but that person doesn't make it out the second time. So a fire safety plan is very, very important. What is a fire safety plan, you may ask? A fire safety plan is something that lets everyone in that building or house know what to do in case of a fire. First of all, you need to create the plan before there's a fire so that everyone knows what to do in case of a fire. So here are the things you need to do to create a fire safety plan. 1, you need to check every single room in the house and find out how you can safely escape in a fire from that room. It's always good to have at least 2 possible ways of doing it in case, say, like we talked about, the door has a fire on one side of it. What is your alternative route? If there are metal bars on the windows, see if there's a way to safely take those down while still protecting yourself, but helping you in case there is a fire to be able to escape safely. If there are rooms on upper stories where it's impossible to jump out of a window, it's always good to have a safety ladder or some method to be able to climb down that window safely. So that's part 1, figuring out how to safely get out of each room and having 2 different ways to be able to do that. Step number 2 is where to meet. Where is everyone going to meet in case of a fire? If you have one designated area, then no one is going to go into a burning building thinking that someone is unsafe when they actually are safe. So you want to pick a place that everyone can easily meet and that would be safe in case of a fire. That means you cannot meet inside the building. A burning building is never safe to be in, no matter how big it is, so you have to leave the building. A good place to pick is someplace across the street. Even just immediately across the street is often a good place to pick. But even if you pick that, somebody might end up at 2 houses down or 1 house down, so you want to pick one exact location. It should be in front of this tree, or in front of this gate, or this door, or this house, so that everyone will be there in case of a fire. It's not enough to just come up with a safety plan, you also have to practice a safety plan. When people are panicked, they often forget everything that they learned. So you want to practice the safety plan so that you can go into an automatic mode when there is a fire, and your muscle memory will kick in and tell you what to do. So I would recommend practicing your fire safety plan, doing fire drills every 3 months. What is a fire drill? It's where you just pretend there's a fire and suddenly everybody has to react. You not only figure out what the problems might be in your safety plan, everybody also figures out how to safely escape out of a fire, and if they do it often enough, they're going to remember how to do it when there really is a fire. Now, some of you may ask, what about a fire extinguisher? Can't I just use that? Well, if there is a small fire and you can safely use a fire extinguisher, go ahead and do that. But when in doubt, or if you don't know how to use this fire extinguisher, or if the fire is big, please just run out safely and let the firefighters do their job. So many of us have fire extinguishers, but we don't actually know how to use them. How do you use a fire extinguisher? Well, first of all, before I even tell you that, I want to ask you, did you know that there's multiple types of fire extinguishers? And you can't use each fire extinguisher for every kind of fire. You have to know your fire extinguisher. There's type A, B, C, D, K, and so you need to know what kind of fire extinguisher you are using. If you use a type A in a grease fire, you're actually going to make the grease fire fire worse, because type A are only used for things like trash or wood or paper. And oftentimes they're composed of water and compressed air. So as we learned in the grease fire talk, putting water into a grease fire will actually make it worse. So the first thing you want to do when you get a fire extinguisher is to read the labels. What does it say? This particular one says it can be used in multiple situations, but know your fire extinguisher. Also, every fire extinguisher comes with safety instructions on how to use it, so make sure you have read that. Fire extinguishers do have an expiration date, so make sure you know what the expiration date of your fire extinguisher is. The gauge may say full, but in the case of a fire, if it is expired, you don't know if you can safely use it to put out that fire. So make sure you replace all expired fire extinguishers. Now let's talk about how to actually use a fire extinguisher. So in the case of my fire extinguisher, it says I should start 8 feet back from the fire. Be sure to read your fire extinguisher and see what it says. But here are the steps that you would otherwise use in all fire extinguishers. You pull out the pin. You point the nozzle at the base of the fire. Our tendency is to move it all around, but that's not what you want to do. Point the nozzle at the base of the fire, and then press the handle. And then in a sweeping motion, pointing the nozzle at the base of the fire with the handle pressed, put out the fire. In summary, let's quickly just go over what we talked about. If you are on fire, you want to stop, drop, cover your face and roll, and you want other people to get water or a heavy blanket or carpet to put on you to smother out the fire. If you're cooking something and it catches on fire, the first thing you want to do is turn off the stove. Then there's multiple options. If it's a small fire, you can use salt or baking soda. You don't want to substitute that for sugar or baking powder or flour. The one thing you never put in a grease fire is water. You can also use a lid that will cover the entire size of the pan. You want to hold it from the furthest end and put it over the fire. One last thing you can do is use a towel, put it in water, squeeze it out. From a safe distance, throw it over the fire. If you are in a building that's on fire and you see a lot of smoke, you want to drop to the ground, and then you want to get to the closest door while crawling. You want to use the back of your hand to touch the doorknob. If it is cold, you can safely open that doorknob and run out of that building yelling fire so that everyone else can escape. If, however, it's hot, you want to go ahead and drop to the ground and crawl to the nearest window, open it up, and try to get out safely. If you cannot, then you want to yell and scream and call for help, and you want to drop to the ground, cover your nose and mouth, and wait until someone can safely come and get you. How do you use a fire extinguisher safely? First, you got to know what kind of fire extinguisher it is and what kind of fire it will put out. Then you can pull out the pin, point the nozzle at the base of the fire. While compressing the handle, go ahead and in a sweeping motion at the base of the fire, keep that handle pressed until that fire is out. I hope you feel you can safely put out multiple types of fire. Please be sure to watch the rest of our first aid and safety videos.